It's heating up in Hot Springs. Let's cap the card at Oaklawn on Saturday, highlighted by the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes. Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host of this episode of Capping the Card. My name is Matthew DeSantis, and you can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Welcome to this episode of Capping the Card, where I go race 1 through race 12 and give you my top pick and my top value play for all 12 races on this Saturday's Oaklawn card, highlighted, as I mentioned, by the Grade 2 Kentucky Derby Prep Rebel Stakes. A lot of people are saying this is the best Derby Prep race we've seen to date. I think that's probably true. I think you can make a case for a lot of different horses. We'll look forward to talking about that in a few minutes. Before we dive into the handicapping, just a quick reminder to make sure to subscribe to Trust the Profits here on YouTube. We have a ton of different content for you, not just focused on the Kentucky Derby. Like I said, we got Capping the Card, which covers all sorts of races. We have graded stakes previews. Colin Sheehan does Doubling Down. We got the Lounge live at Charlestown or Turfway Park or Penn National on Thursday nights. That's a lot of fun. You got to check that out. If you're into horse racing, that's always a lot of fun. So no matter what type of horse racing player you are, we have something for you here on Trust the Profits. So like I said, make sure to subscribe. Also, make sure to like this video and make sure to comment below with who do you like as your best bet on the entire Oaklawn card on Saturday, and let me know who you like in the Rebel Stakes as well. I think that could be a lively discussion. Always enjoy interacting with our fans and followers. So like I said, if this is your first time watching Capping the Card, it's pretty straightforward. I go races 1 through 12. I give you my top pick, my top value play. Value plays, I try to get you something 5-1, 6-1, 8-1 or higher. Doesn't always work out in every single race, but try to connect you with some value. Sometimes that value is a horse I really think is a strong win candidate. Other times it's a horse I think provides great value and vertical exotics underneath. But either way, we always try to make you a little bit of money here on Trust the Profits and Capping the Card. So let's dive into a 12 race card on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. And we'll start off with we're not going to start off with race 12. That's the opposite of where we want to start off. We are going to start off in race 1. And starting off in race 1 in a $90,000 maiden special weight, 6 furlongs for 3-year-old fillies. And this is a state-restricted Archie bred race. Gotta love those Archie bred races. My good friend Chase Sessions, the Wolf of Oaklawn, often says that a man can make a small fortune if he successfully breeds an Arkansas horse. And it's true. Those Archie bred races are very, very profitable. So let's take a look at this race. And my top pick in this one is the number 3 horse, Uncle Shorty's Girl, at 4-1 on the morning line for Joe Pedalino, jockeyed by Walter De La Cruz. And I like this horse for a couple of reasons. This horse really didn't have things set up to be successful first time out. It was in the slop on a sealed track. In addition to that, drew the inside rail in a sprint. Not an ideal spot for a debut for any horse, let alone, like I said, a debut horse. Any horse, under even a veteran horse, would struggle under those circumstances. That said, this horse still showed a lot of run, came on for 3rd place, was well beaten, no doubt. The top 2 really drew off from the rest of the field, and he was 3rd by 8 lengths, or she was 3rd, I should say, by 8 lengths. But here's what I like. The race has already come back pretty live. The 2nd place horse, Ms. Carroll County, came back to win next time out. And so I think you're going to see a little bit of a progression from Uncle Shorty's Girl. It's also a race where I have a hard time trusting the favorite. The favorite is the number 4 horse, Indian Irish, at 5-2 on the morning line. Low percentage barn and Randy Morse. But on top of that, this horse did show some ability to back in the slop, but then followed that up with a really poor performance, significant reduction in speed figures, 4th by 13.5 lengths. So hard for me to get behind a horse like that. I'd rather take a horse that showed a little something on debut, showed the ability to pass other horses, didn't have a perfect trip, didn't have a perfect setup, and still managed to, I think, perform pretty well. So I'm going to use Uncle Shorty's Girl up top in this particular race. Now, for value, I'm going to look at Twinkling Irish, the number 9 horse, at 6-1 on the morning line. This horse showed some ability in a state-bred maiden claiming race. So now is taking the step up to a maiden special weight, no doubt about it. But here's the thing. that race was in the slop in muddy conditions on a sealed track. This horse also broke from the inside rail and was second to last early on in a 12-horse field. So was sitting 11th throughout most of the trip, was getting all that kickback, all of that slop up in her face, sitting 11th most of the way through, and was 11 lengths back. Ended up closing like a freight train, finishing third by three-quarters of a length. So really closed strong. And I thought that was something that was, you could really take something from that performance. Has come back with a decent 4 furlong work coming back. This horse doesn't blow you away with her works, but on the day of the race, she seems to show up. I also like the fact this is a barn that the connections don't race together a ton with Alan Milligan and Medellin, but it's one of those where when they do team up, $3.26 ROI. And on top of that, I really like the fact that Milligan is moving her out of maiden claiming races. I think he realizes maybe this filly has a little something, now gets to take her out of those claiming races, avoids getting her claimed, and gets her in a maiden special weight race. I just think at a little bit of a price, in a field that does not overwhelm by any stretch of the imagination, I like Twinkling Irish, who's at least showed a little something on debut, and I think there should be a little bit of pace for her to run at. I think the 4 and the 11 are both going to run a little bit fast up front, so like for her to be able to close into something there. Let's move to race 2 on the card, which is a $50,000 starter allowance going a mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds and up. And before we get into this one, I should just quickly mention the weather on Saturday at Oaklawn. And I should also preface this by saying the weather Friday at Oaklawn. There's about a 50 to 60% chance of rain both days in Hot Springs on Friday and Saturday. I don't know if I would expect a muddy track or a sloppy sealed track. I wouldn't expect anything like what we saw during the Southwest Stakes or anything like that. But it's possible this track will take on some moisture, and that's something to certainly keep in mind when handicapping. How have horses handled moisture before? How have they handled off-track conditions? Some obviously handle it better than others. Some really love it. So something to keep in mind. Because it's not 100% chance of rain, because they're not calling for torrential downpours, I didn't let it affect my handicapping too much, but it's something that I certainly had in the back of my mind. Well, let's get back to race 2. And this one, I am going to use the favorite here, Great Heart, the number 4 horse for Jerry Hollendorfer with David Cabrera aboard. This is a horse that's 4 for 5 in the exacta at Oaklawn, 3 for 3 in the exacta at this distance. The interesting thing about this horse is if you look at the running lines, you might think this horse needs a lot of pace to run into. When this horse runs on dirt, he traditionally sits much closer to the lead. It's really those races on turf and on the synthetic where he sits real far back and then tries to launch a bit late, as many turf horses do. But on the dirt, this horse tends to sit second, third, fourth, sits in a stalking mid-pack trip. So I think you don't need to worry too much about pace. I don't think this horse's pace compromised, has been working out nicely for Hollendorfer the last couple of times out. And like I said, has had a lot of success at this distance and at Oaklawn Park. So like to what I see here. The other thing is this horse has had success at this level. Just finished second last time out in an allowance, starter allowance 50,000. The reality is a lot of these horses are stepping up in class and are coming from the claiming circuit up to this. That's always a little bit dicey. You're never quite sure how that's going to work out. But like I said, the race last time out with Hollendorfer at the reins, first time out with a new trainer, worked out pretty well. So I am going to use the 4 up top. Now, in terms of value, I really like this 6 horse Icarus quite a bit for Thomas Vanberg with Francisco Arrieta aboard on the mount. This is a horse that is second back from the layoff, is also experienced at this level, 3rd consecutive allowance starter allowance race. And this is a horse that took some time off. I mean, it's one thing to say second back from a layoff. This was about a 5-month layoff this horse had. So pretty significant. Came back and ran, I thought, a really respectable speed figure, ran a 78, which is certainly very comparable for this field. Was in the same race as Great Heart last time out. Finished 5th in that race, about 5.5 lengths back. But I like the fact that you're going to see a little bit of progression. This horse has traditionally progressed second time back from a layoff. That was actually the one time this horse won few races ago in September of 2022. This horse was second back from a layoff at Churchill Downs and won that race. So it shows this is a horse that can do those sorts of things and respond second back. The other thing to point out, Vanberg is also very strong second back, 21%. He and Area Edda are teaming up, winning at a 21% clip with a 230 ROI. So I think all of those things together, Icarus 8-1 on the morning line gives you some nice value there in race 2. Well, let's head to race 3, which is a $62,000 optional claimer going a mile and a 16th. And this is a really interesting race as it is for 4-year-olds and up. And there's some big names in this race, most notably Max Player making his return to the track, a horse that made me a lot of money last year, or 2 summers ago, I guess I should say, up at Saratoga in that Kentucky Jockey Club. But a horse that also is coming off a really long layoff, has not run in well over 8 months. And so I wasn't really sure how I could trust Max Player with obviously trained by Steve Asmussen. This is a horse that had really kind of peaked in that Kentucky Jockey Club and not run particularly well since then. So ultimately I went to the number 6 horse, Thomas Shelby. And this is a little bit more of a pace play. Early speed in routes at Oaklawn have been very, very effective. And honestly, when you look at this race, nobody should really be pressuring Thomas Shelby at all up front. He should have his own way. Historically speaking, when he has his own way up front at 8.5 furlongs, he runs very, very well. And so he's run very well at Oaklawn Park in those instances. He has 2 wins, 6 for 10 hitting the board. At this distance, he's 6 for 9 in the exacta with 4 wins. So again, you get this horse at this track going this distance with this sort of pace setup, I think you're going to see the best version of this horse. Now, I think it's fair to say this horse has not been the same since leaving Diodoro's barn and has not necessarily shown as much ability under Jacobson. And I'd say that's probably true. This horse has also moved around a lot. This horse ran at Monmouth, then Parks, then Laurel, then Aqueduct, then Oaklawn. Now it's running at Oaklawn the 2nd time in a row. I actually think some consistency here for the horse is a good thing. I like Thomas Shelby a lot. I think you're going to get an honest price, 4-1 on the morning line. That's where I'll go as my top pick. Now, my value play is a horse I really like, and I do consider a little bit of a win candidate. And this is the number 2 horse, Perfect Flight, at 8-1 on the morning line for Peter Miller with Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. This is a really interesting horse. Now, you might say, listen, Matthew, this is a horse that won the Zia Park Derby. You know, should I really take this horse seriously? A couple of things to note. This horse is 3 for 3 winning at a mile and a 16th. And it didn't just happen at the Zia Park Derby. It also happened at Santa Anita. It also happened at Del Mar. And I should say at Churchill Downs. So this horse has won on big time tracks going a mile and a 16th. Peter Miller, also a trainer who is actually very, very good at shipping. This horse has been running out in the West Coast, just ran out there January 28th. But this horse, but Peter Miller, I should say, is 24% shipping in optional claimers at Oaklawn Park. So bringing horses in from California, running them at this level at Oaklawn Park, winning 24% of the time. That's a surprising statistic, I think, to show that much success shipping horses in, particularly west to Midwest. A lot of times that west to east transition, a lot of times people like to play against, myself included. But this horse has been running against, just quite frankly, a much better caliber of horse. Has been running against Newgrange, Taba, Forbidden Kingdom, Hoist the Gold, Cabo Spirit on the turf. So it's just been running against a very, very good class of horse. Here's the other thing. Irad Ortiz is aboard. One of the things I've noticed over the years is Irad, when he goes to a track that he does not normally run at, okay, and he's not usually at Oaklawn except for on a day like the Rebel Stakes Day. I'm not going to say Irad likes showing off, but Irad likes letting everyone know how good Irad is on those days. I've seen him do this at tracks time and time again. When he goes out west, sometimes he does this. Well, I saw him in my own backyard at Colonial Downs here in Virginia. When he comes down and he kind of wants to take over that jockey room and go, listen, I'm the best one here. Everybody else is running for second place. So he kind of shows out on these types of days, I have a feeling. And so I think you're going to get the best from Irad. This horse has races to run back to that are absolutely good enough to win this race. So really like this one quite a bit. Well, let's move to race number 4, which is a maiden special weight, $90,000, going a mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds. And this is one where I am going to go with the number 2 horse, King Russell at 6-1. I'm sorry, at 7-2 on the morning line. And this is a horse that is just continuing to show a little bit of improvement every single time out. And for Ron Moquette, this horse had a little bit of a layoff from October to December, came back, ran a strong second to Sun Thunder, who, of course, just finished second at the Risen Star last weekend. So finishing second to Sun Thunder, nothing to work and nothing to sneeze at. Then comes back on off-track conditions, runs a really close up second by only a half a length. And so I think this horse is figuring things out. I think third back on the form cycle is going to be ideal. 7-2, you're getting a little bit of value here. And I just think Bejarano, the jockey, realized that this horse needs to be a little bit closer to the speed. It was interesting that first time back from the layoff when he ran against Sun Thunder was sitting well back, was sitting 11th out of 12 horses, was sitting 8th out of 12 horses at second call. Next time out, he's sitting 5th out of 10 horses, and he's sitting a little bit closer to the lead. It's just, I think Bejarano realizes got to be a little bit closer with this horse. Can't give him too much to do for that late kick, but he certainly does have strong late speed. So I like King Russell up top here. Now, from a value standpoint, I do like the 8 on the stage quite a bit for Steve Asmussen. And this is a really interesting horse that is a quality road horse with Curlin Dam underneath. So this horse should like all the distance. Nice series of 5 furlong works. In debut, this horse showed a little bit of speed, but then ultimately faded a bit to finish 6th. The speed figure, though, absolutely matches what you should be looking for in this particular field. Asmussen's 21% maiden special weight second starts. Interestingly enough, at Oaklawn Park, he's actually 27% maiden special weight second start. So a little bit better there at Oaklawn Park. Here's the other thing that's interesting about this horse. This horse worked out on December 20th and then ran on January 7th. Did not work out in the 18 days in between that last work and the race. So I wonder how all the way cranked up this horse really was. Now, comes back from that January 7th race, takes almost a month off, then has 2 back-to-back works on February 7th, February 14th, now getting ready for this February 25th race. Still a little bit interesting that this horse has 11 days off between the last official work and the race. Might just be something Asmussen realizes about this horse. But I do think this horse has some ability. And I think second time out, you're going to see the best effort there. And at 8-1, get a little bit of value. Well, let's move to race 5 on the card, which is a $104,000 allowance race. And this is an interesting one. And I really like the value play here, but we'll get to Skelly in a second. We're going to start with Go West, who is, I think, a pretty cool horse, actually. This is a horse that I think has just discovered what he is. And I always like horses like that. I like a horse that entire career, for the most part, has been at 1 1/16. They've been routing this horse. This horse goes on a long layoff starting in May to January. So it takes a 7-month layoff, basically. Comes back sprinting at Sam Houston and registers 2 extremely impressive sprints, one of which was from the inside rail, which is never easy to do. The other from the far outside position, which is also sometimes has its own challenges. But this horse has won its last 2 races by a combined 11 lengths. Now, you might say, well, Sam Houston, yeah. This horse has run at Oaklawn Park before. In fact, broke his maiden at Oaklawn Park, going that 1 1/8. This 3 for 5 hitting the board at Oaklawn Park. So this horse has run on this circuit, has run at Fairgrounds, has run at Keeneland, has run at Churchill Downs. So this horse has run in big-time tracks. Just recently, like I said, has been running at Sam Houston, but this horse has great early speed. Horse has shown the ability to sit a little bit, actually sat a little bit in its maiden victory, sat second, let another horse take the lead there. Actually, that horse was Great Heart, who we just talked about in one of the previous races. So interesting to see this horse kind of come back now. Like I said, find itself as a sprint horse. And like I said, I think this horse also has a lot of stamina because this horse is used to going 1 1/16. I'm not worried about the pace in this scenario. This horse can absolutely go the distance and has plenty in the tank left for an aggressive sprint. So definitely like that. And that's why I'm going to go with Go West at 5-2 as my top pick. Now, My value play in this one is the number 5 horse Skelly. And this is, I think, great value. This is a horse that is 3 for 4 in the exacta at this distance, 4 for 5 in the exacta in his career. Only time this horse didn't finish in the money and didn't even finish in the top two was two back on a sloppy track and had a little bit of trouble at the start. It should be pointed out this horse actually went off as the favorite that day. Source has gone off on short odds the last 4 times out, has been the favorite in 3 of them, won one of those, finished second another time. And like I said, had that really poor performance in the slop, came back from that, ran, I thought, a pretty solid second, but was well beaten by Osborne, who's a very good horse. Whatchamacallit, Skelly went off as the second choice that day at about 2-1. So this is a horse that's been attracting a lot of money. Now 8-1 the morning line. I understand this horse hasn't been winning maybe as much as, people might say this horse is burning money a little bit, but at 8-1, this is a horse I'd absolutely use underneath, and I'd throw a few bucks on to win just because this horse has absolutely shown ability and the speed figures are more than good enough to win this race. And so this is an Asmussen horse with Ricardo Santana Jr. board. A lot to like there, I think, for the number 5 Skelly. Let's head to race 6, which is another $90,000 maiden special weight. And I think this is actually the last maiden special weight on the card. Or no, it's not. There's one more maiden race. Almost forgot. The last one on the card is actually a maiden special weight race. So not quite the last one. But let's talk about this race 6, which I think is really fascinating. It is, there's a first timer, the number 6 Afternoon Tea for Rudy Brissett. And I love the pedigree on this horse. Spatestown up top, dam out of Ghost Zapper. This horse should be really, really good. Windstar bred and owned. Brissett has been on fire at Oaklawn, winning 33% of his entries. He's got, he and Pratt don't team up often, but they've been winning at Oaklawn when they do. Pratt is actually 4 for 6 winning at Oaklawn this year. Doing very well there. I know a lot of people have talked about the struggles that he's had out in California. He's not had any struggles in the central time zone in Arkansas. Why do I love this horse's pedigree so much for first time out? First of all, Spatestown is very good with first-time starters who are 3-year-olds and older. 19% winners. That's an incredibly high number considering the average from sires is 9%. Most, I think, very good sires that I would look at and go, oh, that's an interesting angle. That sire is, particularly good with 3-year-old first-time starters. Usually the number is 14, 15%. To see 19% is a really big number for 3-year-old and up first-time starters. The other thing to like here is the dam, while she's not produced a first-out winner, has produced very, very good horses and has produced a number of dirt sprint winners. 45% of her offspring are winning dirt sprints at a 45% clip in 24 career races. So she clearly has some very, very good genes. And like I said, is bred to be a dirt sprinter here. Afternoon Tea at 9-2. I just like this as a horse that gives you a little bit of value because I don't necessarily love the favorites here. I think the Chris Hartman horse, the number 8, Beautiful Bolt. We're going to talk about Hartman a little bit more in a second because he's a very hot trainer at Oaklawn, but he's not really known for getting them ready first time out, only 14%. And the reality is that he's much more effective in maiden special weights, dropping them in class typically after their second or third start. So I'm a little bit worried there. The number 9 horse, Malibu Toast at 5-2 for Brad Cox. This is a horse, again, I have a hard time trusting in that last time out was 6th by 9.5 lengths. Has not gotten the job done yet in 4 career starts. Just not really trusting this horse in this particular spot. So I'll go with Afternoon Tea at 9-2, giving you a little bit more value. A lot I like there with the pedigree. Now let's talk about my value play, which is, I think, a fun horse, Donnie, the number 7, or number 5, I should say, at 8-1 on the morning line for Larry Jones, jockeyed by Kelsey Haar. And this is a horse that I think just showed nice effort last time out. Finished second on a sealed track at this level of race in a maiden special weight 90, and has come back with some very nice works. The trainer is not great with second starts, but has had some success, 13% in maiden special weight second starts. So a little bit of ability there. And I just think this is a horse that I would probably use more underneath. I don't view Donnie don't view Donnie as a strong wing candidate, but I think underneath, absolutely a valuable play. And it should be pointed out, she was second in a 9-horse field. So there's plenty of competition there. She held her own. She held off the horse that came uh, trying to get her by on who was running third that day, who's Flying Bessie, who's going off at 6-1 for Steve Asmussen. So, Donnie, that was her first debut effort. Now, second time out, you expect maybe a little bit of progression. I don't see why this horse isn't going to hit the board, especially in a race where I think there's some question marks around the favorites. So I like the 6 and the 5 here in race number 6. Well, let's go to race 7 on the card. And this is the first of 3 stakes races. This is the Carousel Stakes, which is a listed stakes race going 6 furlongs for 4-year-old and up fillies. And this is one where I really went back and forth between 2 horses. I went back and forth between Pretty Birdie and Ugiri, and they both are speed horses. And ultimately, I ended up siding with Ugiri for a couple of reasons. One, she's just going to have the inside path because she's breaking the inside of uh, to the inside of Pretty Birdie, and that's actually been a pretty winning move at Oaklawn Park, having inside speed on sprints. So she's going to get the inside. I think that's going to be beneficial. The other thing I like is that Ugiri is used to routing and has that additional stamina. And this is second back from a layoff, ran great last time out, getting Lasix for the first time at an allowance level race. The second place horse comes back to win a stakes race next time out and hot and sultry. So she beat a nice field. I just always go back to that Kentucky Oaks with Ugiri, where she and Echo Zulu set these incredibly fast early fractions. Obviously not sustainable, but she's got incredible speed and she can sustain that speed, particularly over a sprint. And so I really like her as a sprinter in this spot. Should be pointed out, she is 3 for 3 hitting the board at Oaklawn with 2 wins. She is 2 for 2 winning at this distance. She broke her maiden at this distance, and she won last time out at this distance. So a lot to like there. Ricardo Santana Jr. aboard. Ricardo, I always trust in horses where you want him to be aggressive. Going to be very aggressive out of the gate. The works have looked great. I know it's 2-1, which is a short price, but I really do like Ugiri quite a bit here. I'm a little bit more worried that Pretty Birdie's going to get burned up by a pace duel. I'm a little less worried about Ugiri holding on. Now, if you are worried about a pace duel, then I would encourage you to use the number 1 horse, Hazy Command, at 10-1 on the morning line for Tom Amos. This is a horse that will absolutely come running late, okay? So don't worry. If this horse hits the top of the stretch, it isn't anywhere close. Don't fret. This horse will come running late, is 11 for 13 in the money lifetime, 9 for 9 in the money at this distance of 6 furlongs. Additionally, 2 for 2 winning at Oaklawn Park. Now, hasn't been doing it at this stakes level, so is taking a step up in class, but has won the last 2 times out. And has beaten some other horses that are in this race, Dealing Justice, Portilla, who are a little bit bigger prices. But this is a horse that is in top form, and you have a really good jockey aboard. When Bejarano and Tom Amos team up, they're winning at a 24% clip. You like that. And so I just think this is a race. If you think that's pace battle is going to be a little too much for Ugiri and Pretty Birdie to keep up and to maintain, then I think Hazy Command makes a lot of sense underneath and maybe even up top at 10-1 at a big price. And again, inside speed, inside positions in sprints have not been a bad thing. Those inside 3 positions, posts 1, 2, and 3, have actually been yielding the highest percentage of sprint winners at Oaklawn Park this meet. So being inside in sprints is not necessarily a bad thing. Well, let's move to race number 8 on the card. And this is a $50,000 optional claimer going 6 furlongs for 4-year-olds and up. And this is another, I think, pretty contentious race where you have a few, I think, really good horses. You have a horse on the inside, Flapjack, who's 2-1 on the morning line, taking a little bit of a step up in class. I'm not, granted, the horse is in very good form, but also has one on muddy sealed tracks the last two times out. I do wonder if this horse just likes that sort of condition. The other horse in this race is Spankster at 5-2 for Dwayne Lucas. I don't know what to do with this horse. I ultimately ended up not using Spankster. Just this horse does not win enough and does not run well enough, despite posting very good speed figures. I just could not get there with this horse. So ultimately, I went with Albizu. And Albizu is a horse for Robertino Diodoro, who we've not mentioned at this point, but is obviously one of the top trainers on the Oaklawn circuit, winning 27% of his entries this meet. When he teams up with Christian Torres, the jockey, they are only winning at a 32% clip, which is not that bad, with a $2.63 ROI. The other reason I like Albizu is this horse is much more consistent than the other two favorites. He is a horse that is 11 for 15 in the money lifetime, has won at Oaklawn Park, had some trouble last time out, but the top two in that race, Edge to Edge and Pain, have come back winners next time out. So that race has come back very, very strong. Like I said, Albizu stumbled at the start, bobbled at the start. So, that was just a race he kind of crossed the line through. This horse can sit much closer than he has recently, but he can close as well. So there is, I think, going to be a little bit of pace here in this race. So I like Albizu in this spot. I think you're getting, honestly, his third choice, grant only 3-1, but I could see this horse floating up a little bit because I do think the top two are going to take some money, particularly Spankster. Let's talk about my value play here, and that is the number 9 horse Fitzpatrick. And this is a horse this is a little bit of a trainer play. This horse coming off a long layoff for trainer Joe Sharp. Here's the thing. Joe Sharp might not win a lot at Oaklawn Park, only 6% right now this meet, but is really great at getting horses ready off a long layoff. This 27% win off a 180-day plus layoff with a very positive $4.51 ROI. Gets John Velazquez aboard. You got to like that. This is a horse also that had been running against, I think, very good competition in New York prior to get the layoff. Had run against Montauk Daddy, had run against Stage Left, has run against Repo Rocks, has run up against some nice horses, and has always run competitively. The speed figures are very, very consistent. This horse has been clocking very strong 5 furlong works the last 4 times out in the training track. I think this horse is ready to roll at 8-1 on the morning line, presents you a little bit of value. Definitely like that for Fitzpatrick in race 8. Well, let's go to race number 9. And this is another optional claimer, 50,000, going 6 furlongs for 4-year-olds and up. And this is one where we talked about Chris Hartman earlier. I like one of his horses as a little bit of a value play. But ultimately, in this one, I really am going to end up using the number 9 horse, Life is Hard, at 3-1 for James DeVito and Francisco Arrieta. I'm going to use that horse up top in this one. And Life is Hard, this is a horse that threw up a monster number last time out. And that was off of a layoff, of a very long layoff, off of about a 7-month layoff, and finished second that day to Cogburn. But really showed a lot, threw up a 95 buyer speed figure. Second time out, you'd expect there to be potentially even a progression. DeVito has pretty decent second out stats to suggest that this horse should continue to progress. The works have looked really, really good. Here's the other thing. This horse is 4 for 4 in the exacta at Oaklawn Park. In fact, this is where this horse runs best. I'm not saying this is a horse for a course by any stretch, but this horse really does like the track at Oaklawn quite a bit. This horse can route. This horse can sprint. Now, this horse has not won sprinting. This horse, actually, the 2 victories this horse has are a maiden special weight at a mile and $25,000 optional claimer at a mile and a 16th. So something certainly to keep in mind. I do like that DeVito brings Arrieta aboard, who's winning at an 18% clip this Oaklawn meet. Definitely like that. I actually think this might be this horse's best distance, especially still easing back from that layoff. This horse has options as well. I always like that. This horse does not need a lead. This horse will sit and stalk and then go. And I very much so like that from a running line standpoint. ultimately, this was one where, like I said, that's why I went with him. Osborne's the other big name in this race at 8-5, a pretty overwhelming favorite in this field. Part of the reason I'm a little worried about Osborne is I think there might be a bounce from that last effort. This horse also came back from a layoff, ran a massive buyer speed figure, ran a 98. Here's the thing. Nothing about Osborne prior to that race would suggest that he was going to run a 98. I think there's going to be a regression with this horse. I think he's probably going to run back to maybe a high 80 buyer speed figure, which isn't bad. But I like the fact that I just think that Life is Hard is able to sustain that a little bit better. Well, let's talk about the long shot play, the value play that I like, which I always like horses by Twirling Candy. And so this is a Chris Hartman horse, 4 left, 10-1 in the morning line. This horse ran really well last time out in a $50,000 optional claimer, finished second, went off as the favorite actually in that race. So this horse has taken on a bit of money before. Great jockey trainer combo. Chris Hartman and Nick Juarez, when they team up, what are they doing? They're winning at a 23% clip with a 248 ROI. Hartman himself is winning 33% of his entries at Oaklawn Park this meet. I like the fact that this is a horse that can stalk, doesn't need the lead, can sit outside and kind of judge the pace a little bit. I just think a 10-1 for a really hot barn, you're getting good price because Hartman has been winning just a ton of races down at Oaklawn Park. And like I said, whenever I see a hot barn and I see a horse that's 10-1 on the morning line, I'm going to use that horse. Now, a lot of people might. This horse might getting bet down to 6-1 or something like that. I still think this horse is useful to use underneath. This horse has shown some ability the last few times out. And like I said, at this optional claiming 50 level, I think is kind of I think this is kind of where this horse does best. So for a hot barn, like the price there in race number 9. Well, let's go to race 10, which is the Honeybee Stakes. And this is a Kentucky Oaks prep race, grade 3, going a mile and a 16th for 3-year-old fillies. And this is one where there is going to be some pace in this race. Let me just say that. Effortlessly elegant. And the number 3 horse, Grand Love, are going to go at it up front. And they're both really fast. So there's going to be a fair amount of speed in this race. A horse like Condensation is going to be pretty forwardly placed, I would imagine. In addition to a horse like Olivia Twist is going to be forward and Taxed is going to be forward. So there's a lot of speed in this race. As a result, I ultimately went with the number 7 horse, Wet Paint, who also likes wet conditions. This horse likes a little bit of moisture in the track, 2 for 2 over wet track conditions. Now, here's the other thing. This horse has great late speed. That's the other reason I like this horse a lot. This horse obviously won the Martha Washington last time out, so is very capable over this track and over this distance, and sat kind of the trip I expect for her to sit again, which is to sit kind of towards the back, maybe mid-pack. You know, it was a smaller field from Martha Washington, so she sat last. But traditionally, she might sit a little bit closer. You know, when she was in a 12-horse field before, she sat a little bit closer. She's actually been on the lead before as well. So again, some versatility from her that I like to see. She's not going to overwhelm you with speed figures, but here's the thing. None of the horses in this field really overwhelm you with speed figures. Towhead, who probably has the highest recorded speed figure in this race at an 82, like that's an anomaly. I mean, this horse had been running in the 60s prior to that. So I have a hard time thinking suddenly Towhead's a different horse after 8 career starts. Grand Love is a horse that's actually been regressing the last few times out. It was most impressive on debut, might be a little bit more of a need to lead, and when you press, might have a little bit of issues. So, like I said, Wet Paint, I think the race just sets up really nicely for this horse from a pace standpoint. And if there is moisture on the track, absolutely love this horse in this particular spot. So that's where I went up top, and you're getting a little bit of value at 7-2. Now, for my value play, I ultimately went to Gambling Girl for Todd Pletcher. And this is kind of just a lesser version of Wet Paint, another horse that will sit back and then run late. Again, I like the pace here. This horse actually has been running longer. This horse has run the full 9 furlongs the last 2 times out in the Demoiselle and the Busanda, finished the 3rd by a length, Julia Shining and Affirmative Lady, then came back to actually beat Affirmative Lady, but losing to a Colt in the Busanda. So this horse can absolutely handle the distance. I really think at 12 to 1, you're getting phenomenal value on this horse for Todd Pletcher with Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. Again, Irad, I expect him to show up in these types of days and kind of show out a little bit. So the fact he's coming in to run on this type of day at Oaklawn Park takes Gambling Girl at 12 to 1. Really like this horse a lot. And I would put a couple bucks, maybe even to win on this particular filly. So really like the 7-4 there in the Honeybee Stakes. Well, let's talk about the Rebel Stakes. And this is going to be a doozy, a grade 2 mile and a 16th for the 3-year-olds. And this is, of course, 50 Kentucky Derby points are at stake in the grade 2 Rebel. And this is a race where it is both, I feel like, an open race, because I could see a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people making arguments for big long shots. And I could understand that. This is also a race where it would not surprise me on Saturday evening, we look back and go, oh, this is maybe the most impressive effort performance we've seen from a Derby horse yet. I think there's a ton of talent in this race. Verifying, I think Red Route 1, obviously, I have a lot of confidence in. Giant Mischief, Reincarnate, Confidence Game to a lesser extent. I know a lot of people are very high on the Palo Lobo event detail horse coming off the synthetic. I don't mind that move at all. I like actually the synthetic to dirt move. Obviously, is a winning move for Rich Strike. You've seen it before on the Derby Trail be successful, Animal Kingdom and others. So nothing that's a problem there. I do have a question. Palo Lobo 0 for 16 right now in graded stakes races. That's a little bit of a question mark for me more than anything else. But there's some talent in this field. And I think, if you look at a horse like Reincarnate, let's just start there. Horse that won the Sham Stakes last time out over Newgate and National Treasure, 2 horses I really like a lot. My concern with Reincarnate is this a horse that needs the lead? I'm not sure. Does this horse have another way to win? Because I'm not sure this horse is going to get the lead in this particular race. That's the thing. Powerful has maybe the number 2 horse has better early speed. Potentially, I wouldn't even be surprised if Gun Pilot really goes and tries to press early with Ricardo Santana Jr. aboard and tries to get to the lead. Confidence Game is going to want to try to get to the lead. Again, this is going to be a very hot pace because, oh, by the way, the number 11 Frosted Departure is also going to want the lead. So now you're looking at Reincarnate sitting 3rd, 4th, potentially. The horse hasn't demonstrated the ability to win doing that yet. Now, maybe will, but hasn't demonstrated that ability yet. This is obviously a Tim Yak-Teen horse, but had been previously trained up until really last week by Bob Baffert. So yes, for all intents and purposes, this is a Baffert horse who's been, not surprisingly, clocking phenomenal works out at Santa Anita, has been working alongside National Treasure, a horse I have a huge amount of confidence in, and I really like a lot. But at 7 to 2, I just don't know. There's some questions about Reincarnate there. This horse absolutely looked like $1 million plus at the Sham Stakes, and might be another one of those where if you turn on the race on Saturday afternoon and this horse looks great, maybe you end up going to Reincarnate. Ultimately, I couldn't pull the trigger there. Giant Mischief was a horse I really wanted to like, but at 5 to 2 in the morning line, I do not like at all. Here's an interesting statistic, friends. The horses that Giant Mischief beat the last 2 times out, and I finished second in one of those, but the horses he bested the last 2 times out have come back and are a combined 1 for 27. Yikes. So he has not been facing the best competition. That's concerning to me. I love this horse. I love the guts this horse showed in the Springboard Mile, but ultimately I went with Verifying up top. Verifying, if you believe certain accounts that I've been seeing on social media from pretty reliable sources, and the people who are watching these works, they're suggesting that Verifying has been outworking Giant Mischief and has been doing it a little bit easier. I think this is Brad Cox's best Derby horse. And I think what you saw last time out in that optional claimer is just the tip of the iceberg. I think this horse has the potential to be really special. Posted a huge 97 buyer speed figure that last time out. And I just think this horse also has demonstrated the ability to handle wet conditions. Finished second in the Grade 1 Champagne, which was in the slop to Blazing Sevens. So this horse has some versatility. This horse can go to the lead. This horse can sit a little bit more. Like I said, inside early speed is not a bad thing in these dirt routes at Oaklawn Park. So I love the inside post. I love the fact that Verifying is going to flash some speed. I would imagine he will be sitting in the second flight inside path. There might be 2-3 horses in front of him, but he'll be sitting 3rd, 4th, on the inside rail in the second flight. I think a perfect position for Florent Giroux there. Now, from a value point, listen, this is same song, second verse for me. This is what I said in the Southwest, and I'm going to say it again here. Red Route 1. 10-1. He was 10-1 in the Southwest, and he came home at a bigger price than that for second place. I freaking love this horse, especially when there's a hot pace. There's going to be a very hot pace in this race. These horses are going to fade down the stretch. Red Route 1 is going to come running. He obviously loves the slop, as he demonstrated the last time out in the Southwest. Oh, by the way, that Southwest just produced the second place finisher in the Risen Star in Sun Thunder, who was a well-beaten fourth in that race, came back to very close second. So that race has come back very strong. Red Route 1, 10-1 for Steve Asmussen and Christian Torres. I just really love what the value you're getting with Red Route 1. I can't believe he's 10-1 on the morning line. I consider him a potential win candidate, and certainly a horse I'm going to be using underneath, because he's going to pick up the pieces, folks, because there is going to be a lot of pieces for him to pick up, because this field is going to collapse down the stretch, I have a feeling. And that's why I like Verifying coming from a little off the pace. I like Red Route 1 coming from deep. And I just think that's where you're going to see a lot of value in the Rebel Stakes. Well, let's talk about the final race on the card, which is a $90,000 maiden special weight. And this is for 3-year-olds, and this is an Archie bred race. And again, nice little pot there for those Archie breds going 6 furlongs. And I really like a horse that's getting the full makeover package, and that is Midnight Taxes for Chris Hartman. We're getting a trainer change. Hartman coming on. First off, the trainer change is winning 24%. That's good. We already talked about all of his stats with Juarez. Obviously, very winning. This horse is getting Lasix for the first time. This horse got gelded. This horse is going back on dirt. Now, who did this horse face on dirt? Well, let me tell you who this horse has faced out in California. Newgate, National Treasure, and Practical Move. Could I interest you in that field? Could I interest you in anybody else in this race running anywhere close to those horses? Now, granted, Midnight Taxes was well beaten in those races, no doubt about it. Was 10 lengths back of National Treasure in the maiden special weight race. Then went on to the turf, ran against some nice horses on the turf actually too, and some next out winners. And second back from a layoff, like I said, getting the trainer change, going back on dirt, gelding, Lasix, just the total makeover package. This is the sort of horse I usually love to use in maiden claiming races. Well, here they are in a state bred race, 3-1. I know you're not getting a ton of value, but I'll absolutely be using that horse. Now, listen, maybe it's fitting that one of my favorite jockeys we're going to wrap up with on the final horse on the card, and that is the value play of Skyped at 9-2 for Rene Burrell and jockeyed by one of my guys, Calvin Burrell. I love Calvin. 7 for 11 in the money. This horse is still a maiden after 11 career races. I know what you're saying, Matthew. Come on, what are you doing? But 7 for 11 in the money. This horse runs honest. This horse runs really well. This horse has been in the money the last 5 times out, second or third place. So, and very consistent speed figures. So this horse, you know what you're going to get from this horse. You probably are not going to get a winner, but I'm going to use this horse in vertical exotics all day. So again, from a value standpoint, just really like what this horse has to provide at 9-2 in a race where I should point out, I'm not necessarily enthralled with some of these horses. There's some first out starters who I don't think are, really that big of threats. The favorite in this race has drawn the 10 post, Time and Beyond. The horse obviously did show a lot, but is coming off a little bit of a layoff, might be more of a creature of a muddy track. We'll see. Did certainly run up against Lugan Knight in debut, so has faced up against some good horses, but willing to try to beat this horse on the day. And like I said, I'm going to use Midnight Taxes and Skyped to do it. Well, that wraps it up for us on a very eventful day at Oaklawn Park. Did it in under 50 minutes. That's pretty good. Listen, folks, make sure to subscribe to Trust the Profits here on YouTube. Make sure to throw a like on this video. Make sure to comment with what you think about the races on Saturday. Am I right? Am I wrong? Where do you think I'm crazy? Where do you think I'm dead on? And who do you like in the Rebel Stakes? Make sure to give me a follow on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. And like I said, make sure to subscribe to Trust the Profits for all of our good stuff. Well, until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.